When I first switched to the Midori Hibino this year, I was so excited about it. And if you watched my 1 month update, you'll know that I was very much in the honeymoon stage and I was completely in love. But now we're about 6.5 months in, and I thought it was time to do another flip through and take a look at what it's been like using my Midori Hibino as my one book for planning and anything life related. So we'll look at the pages that I filled, we'll look at all the pages that I didn't fill, and talk about some surprises and where I'm at now as we head into the second half of the year. In case you are new here, this is my cover. It is a collaboration between Yoshida and Company and Hobonichi. It's called the POTR Stroll. This one is the light brown color that was part of the September 2025 release for the 2026 planner season. It was quite an investment, but I've been really happy with it. And a surprising thing about this cover that I didn't think I was going to love as much as I do is the fact that it is shaped like a bag, which might seem a little bit odd as a planner cover, but I actually really love the fact that it has this, because when I am moving around my home, it is a zip cover, but I don't always leave the zip open, and I can just walk around my home holding my planner like this, and I just find it very convenient. And it's a very small feature, but it's a pleasant surprise, and I always love it when the products I have pleasantly surprise me. So inside I have my stencils in the card section. I have my business credit card, so I use this for business related expenses. I have my favorite Hobonichi stencil ruler. This is I'm not sure what it's called, but they are all different colors. So it's the yellow one, and I like it because it's a little bit longer, and I like that it's flexible. So with a book that can get as chunky as this, I find it really helpful sometimes to have a ruler that can bend with your pages. So I alternate between using this and my brass traveler's notebook ruler, which I have. So I use this ruler sometimes as well. And I like this ruler because it allows me to make lines across the whole page. Because I keep my vanishing point here, this is the only slot that would fit the ruler, and I don't really want them to be in the same spot. Unfortunately, this doesn't fit in the back, so I have it in my utility case, which is always close by when I'm planning. I have my vanishing point tucked into this bottom slot. I've got a little "Every Day is Your Birthday" sticker from one of my favorite Toronto-based artists, Funi, and I like to keep it tucked in here just because I think it's cute. In this front pocket, I have a Hobonichi A6 sized folder, and I keep all of my transfer stickers in here. I have a Hobonichi A6 pencil board, and on the back I've taped a size down printout of the feelings wheel, which I like to use sometimes when I need some extra help trying to figure out how I'm feeling. And then I have a traveler's notebook passport sized pencil board, and I like this one because it's a little sturdier compared to the Hobonichi one. So sometimes when I'm stamping in here, I like to use this as an extra surface to help me with my stamps. On the inside cover of the Hibino, I just have a few stickers here. And I'm actually planning on adding another sticker here because Moonlit Journal recently sent me the most thoughtful package in the mail, and she included these beautiful stickers from Seafoam Rabbit that she's been featuring on her channel. And now that I see these stickers in person, I completely understand why she loves them so much. They are some of the most vibrant ethereal stickers I've seen, and I would really love to add one of these to the inside cover. So I actually thought we could do that together. And I was thinking maybe putting a sticker here or somewhere here. I even wonder if this would fit. It's kind of hard to tell if it would fit, but this might be a really nice slot. I think I will. I'm just gonna go for it. So yeah, I've been enjoying adding stickers throughout the year, and I knew I really wanted to do something special with some of these stickers. So Moonlit Journal, if you're watching this, thank you so much for the sticker sheet along with all the other amazing goodies that you sent me. So that's my inside cover, and when this gets full, I also have the back cover to add stickers to. So I like that I can kind of collect these as the year progresses. On the inside, I just have another sticker. I really liked how there was this person sitting in a cozy space with a book and a drink, and then a dog under here. This whole thing just feels like my personality. So I like that. I have done nothing with these pages, but I always love having the yearly overview as a reference. I've done nothing with the future log. I've received so many ideas over the past few months. If I feel really compelled to using this future log, then I can always come back and add something to it. As for the months, I primarily use them as a place to document highlights, events, vacations, and a place for me to use some of my stickers. And on the side here, I have an index, and whenever there's something on the pages that I want to come back to, I will add them here. So I don't necessarily have something for every day of the month, but if there is something noteworthy, I will add it to the index here so I can find it later. And I have continued this for the rest of the months, and you will see later on that I do have a lot of blank pages in months that have already passed, and so I add to this index as I complete the pages. So if there ends up being something, like if I end up going back into April and I use a blank space for notes that I want to refer back to, then I will add it to the index. So you will see even in May, I haven't filled out my index yet, even though May has passed, because I have a lot of blank pages in May. So that's kind of how I've been managing the empty pages. And we have the same thing for June. So with the Hibino, after December, you get one extra month of the new year. And this is kind of interesting. I thought I would point out, I don't know if you can see it. There is a little bit of bleed through from what I have on the other page. It's mostly ghosting, but there are spots where it is bleeding through. It doesn't really bother me too much at this point, but I still thought I would point that out, that maybe this is just the reality of Tomoe River Sands and Paper at this point. But this is one of my favorite spreads because it's one of those spreads that gets more satisfying as the year progresses. So this is my steps and workout tracker where I track my step. I just have an app on my phone that records it. So I write my steps, and then I have a color dedicated for whenever I go for a run. And I have another color, this green, that is for whenever I do some kind of resistance or strength training. And I just color in the days depending on whether I have done one of those two workouts. And I like this. I basically recreated this spread based on the Hobonichi yearly calendar. I really like being able to see a year at a glance, and I find it very motivating to see months I'm getting more exercise in and what months I'm not. So for example, in February, I was sick for a few weeks, and so I did a lot less runs and strength training, but I was able to kind of pick that up in the following months. I see in June, things kind of fell a little bit, and we'll talk about why, but I prefer to have this overview. And each month I complete, I love seeing the progress, and I think it's going to be really satisfying to have this whole spread completed by the end of the year. This next page is my symptom tracker. So this is where I track my anxiety, my sleep, and my skin issues. So I track daily these 3 things on a 1 to 10 scale. And then this tracker is really just meant to represent the ranges, so I can see at a quick glance when something needs attention. It's a large circle, colored in circle, when I need to monitor what's going on. And then the little tiny dot means that everything is pretty okay, and just it's really more of like a maintain this. So I can see right away that I seem to be a little higher anxiety in the first few months of the year. And then for April, May, and June, it looks like apart from a few days, my anxiety levels were pretty well managed. You can see here that my sleep has been okay. It could definitely be better. There were quite a few days of nights where I had less than 4 hours of sleep, which is not great. And you'll see there's a little bit of an uptick in that in June. With my skin issues, we see I've had a few flare-ups, but for the most part, it's been relatively okay, which is such a relief, because last year and the year before, when I started doing this type of tracking, it was a lot of big colored dots. Anytime there's a little square, that represents an event that I think could potentially tell a bit more of the story. So for example, under anxiety, I have this date squared off, 27th of March. So when I look over here, I see that that was the day that Coconut passed. So that makes a lot of sense that I had a really high anxiety day. And if I look under March on the 27th, you'll see that my sleep was not great either. And I also noticed that about a week or so later, after everything happened with Coconut, I had a flare-up, and it's possible that that could have been related or not. But I think it's just really helpful to be able to see these things at a glance for the entire year. So I really love this tracker as well. And as the year goes on, it's been really satisfying to fill up this page as well. Over here, we have my favorite meals, and this is a little bit outdated because I change my mind often and I go in and out of phases with favorite meals. This is one reference when I'm meal planning, but I've also created a separate meal planning book where I am now referencing my meals when I'm planning. Anytime I come across a recipe that I think would be interesting to make, I will copy it out on a page and I will mark it down here so that I know where to reference it. And if it's a meal that I end up really enjoying, then it will go into my permanent recipe meal book that I use a Me Plus binder for. So this is kind of any recipe I come across, whether I like it or not. And then the other one is more of a permanent one for tried, tested, and true recipes. Here's also one of my favorite spreads. We were off to a really strong start at the beginning of the year. This is what I've been using as a habits tracker. This kind of format I started in my Hobonichi weeks several years ago. And then I started creating this kind of chart in my A6 Hobonichi last year. And then now I've since moved it over to my Hibino, and it's really just a table, but I really like it because I kind of have my habits, I have things that I'm tracking, and then I also have a specific section for my skin because I do struggle with chronic skin issues. And here is me doing a little daily log of when I was on vacation. So this wasn't really work related. It was more so I had this book with me when I was in Australia at the beginning of the year visiting family, and I really enjoyed just doing like almost like a rapid log. And then here I just had the pens that I had inked while I was away. So I really love how full this page was, and I love how much you can fit in just 2 pages. Here I have some books read. So this is just another tracker. So I'm just tracking the books that I've read for the year. Here I'm tracking the movies that I've watched, TV shows. Actually, I have a TV show to add. I'm about halfway through watching The Testaments. I usually just put the months that I'm watching the TV show because sometimes I watch a TV show really quickly and sometimes it just takes me a while to get through them. Over here, I am tracking the letters that I've sent, and I'm actually so pleased to say that I've already sent 74 letters, and that's not including NaNoWriMo. So if I were to include NaNoWriMo, it's been over 100 letters that I've sent this year, which is kind of wild to me. So I've never really been good at remembering to track the letters sent. I've created this spread over the last few years, but I always forget to fill it out. But this year I've been really good about it, and it's been really motivating and rewarding to see how many I've actually sent. And then here is where we have my weekly verticals. So before I officially moved into this book, I set up all of my weekly spreads. This one's on a Friday because I was using a lot of pages in the front for some of my collections, but generally I do these on Sundays. And I just did this because for me, I really thrive with a vertical weekly calendar, and I've realized over the years that I really like to plan by week, and I love to see a weekly overview. And so I knew that it was going to be easier for me to use this book if I had all my weeklies set up, because if I had to set up my week as I went along, then it wouldn't allow me to mark down future dates. And it would just be this extra friction whenever I sat down to plan for the week ahead. And so, yeah, I basically set all of them up. It took a while, but it was worth it because now it's all done. Here I just had a bunch of notes related to Coconut's medication schedule. Coconut was my dog. He was my senior dog, and he was having a lot of health issues at the end of his life. And so I actually used this book a lot for keeping track of things because at that time there were just so many things to remember. On this side, so every Saturday throughout this book, I dedicate half of the page to my trackers, and then every other Saturday I dedicate the bottom of the page to meal planning because I do meal planning every 2 weeks. And then we have my Sunday weekly. Now we are kind of into how I've been setting up my days since moving into this book. There's an invisible line that's kind of built into the left side of the page. This is where I kind of look at my meetings for the day. When I was in my last system, I had a weekly supplement and an A6 Hobonichi. And I would have my weekly supplement always open, so I could always glance at my week at a view on my desk. But because my week is integrated into this book, I always kept it open on my daily page. And so I needed a place to be able to see what my day was going to look like. And so that's what I used this column for. And then I created 2 columns on this page. And this middle one I used as a to-do list. So you'll see some days my to-do list was very small, some days they were very big. And then here was mostly notes related to meetings that I had. And then usually I would use this side of the page for extra notes or for anything else that may have been related to this date or not. So on this page, I was doing a little bit of research into working with clients outside of Ontario, the province that I am based in. And this is the kind of thing that I knew I was going to want to reference. So I used up this whole page, and as I reached out to different organizations to get information, I would add when I heard back and what I heard from them. And now I just have all of this in one place, which I really love, because if I were using the Hobonichi A6, for example, this probably would have taken up 5 pages, and then I would have had to have flipped through 5 pages to make sense of this. But in this way, I get to see it all on one page, and I really, really love that. So here I just have some notes on acceptance and commitment therapy, something I like to reference pretty frequently. Here I just have some notes as I prepared for one of my Wonder Pens workshops. And something I really love to do is anytime I have a little blank space, I love to fill it up with ink thoughts, which is basically taking a pen that has an ink in it and talking about what the ink is, what pen it's in, and how I feel about it. And this is a page where I've been inking up different pens with the same ink, and I love doing this. I do this in many different books because I just genuinely like seeing how same ink looks in different pens. And so anytime I ink a pen up with Konpeki, I know to turn to this page and add to the list. And that's something that I really love about this Hibino, is if I were to do a flip through of this with you at the end of the year, this will still look different, because I use the to-do lists and I use the dated dailies for future events. I use basically this section for planning, but oftentimes I have a lot of blank spaces. You'll see I have a lot of blank right side pages, and I end up going back and adding things to it. So for example, like this was probably empty for a few weeks, but when I came across this recipe that I wanted to try, I was able to come back retroactively and add it in. And then when I index it, then I know to find it here. It's kind of like this very organic space, and it reminds me of when you set up your home. You may decorate it a certain way initially, but over time you will add things to it, you will take things away, and it will kind of evolve with you. And that's what this book feels like. It's kind of this puzzle piece where I'm finding different ways to complete the puzzle. I don't know if that makes sense, but I find it very rewarding and engaging to kind of flip through and like find a space and add something later. So more recipes. I'll go through this a little more quickly because I think I've already shown a lot of this in a previous video, so I want to get to the pages that you haven't seen yet. Some notes on dust mite allergies. When I really needed the space, we went to a vet dermatology appointment in January, and there were so many things to remember. Yes, I could have had a separate notebook to add this to, but it's so much easier when it's all in the book that I'm interacting with every day. And it was really helpful to kind of write the things down because there were all these different things we had to do on different schedules, and it was good to have this to reference, but then I could go into the book and add things in the top of each day so that I would know what I needed to do or what medication I needed to give Coconut. I know this is kind of a specific scenario, but it was so helpful during these days, and I really appreciated having all of this space. Whenever I receive ink from a pen friend, or if I give ink samples to a pen friend, I like to record it in here as well. Partially because then it allows me to make sure that I don't send the same ink samples to the person if I send them a second package. And also I like to remember what I receive from people, and I like to remember them by the year. So even though I have other books that I record this type of stuff in, I do really like having it kind of in its own yearly book. And I also, when I have time, I haven't had time recently, but when I have time, I use this space also kind of as a study book. So if I read an article that I find really interesting, or maybe I'm something I plan to reference in my work, either as a psychotherapist or even for a YouTube video, I like to take notes in here. Also like to do my currently inks from time to time. I had a lot more time in January, so my pages are much more full, but they definitely don't stay that way, and you will see soon. I also like to use it for sketching, so this was me sketching out different living room layout ideas. These were some of the pens that I had inked up for NaCoWriMo. And even this is something that I kind of come back to, where whenever I have my Euphoria 1.1 stub nib inked with a different ink, I'll come here and add it in. So actually, I do currently have my Benu Euphoria 1.1 stub currently inked with a Sailor Mano ink, so I will add that in right now. So I currently have this inked with Sailor Mano Ayame. Just add my blotting paper there. Because this is quite a thick book, I've been using a lot of transfer stickers, and the idea was that I would do some sketches, but I actually haven't done that. I've also been adding stamps, blank page. This was my NaCoWriMo tracker, so these were all the letters that I sent for NaCoWriMo. More ink thoughts. My mom was having surgery and I took some notes here. I also like to take notes on videos that I am filming for YouTube. So this was me doing a bit of brainstorming around stationery that I regret purchasing, and I ended up using this as a basis for a video that I ended up filming. If I'm copying out an article that's very long and it takes more than 2 pages, I like to continue the ink color so that I know that this is related to the article. I love that it's kind of integrated in between the rest of my life. Something I started doing in February, where I would use these little picture frame stamps from Nicole Josephine, and I would add little swatches of inks that I either sent to pen friends or received from pen friends. And then we have more of this color, which is a continuation of the article that I was copying out here. I was doing some research on shampoo bars because I used to buy shampoo bars from this local Toronto shop, and then unfortunately they closed down. So I ended up doing some research into the ingredients that they used, and I found another brand also based in Canada that seemed to have a similar offering. And I've been really happy with this brand actually, so I'm glad that I did this research. Comparing the same ink in 6 different pens. This was a spread that my friend Laura from XOXO Lore did in my journal. I love it. I love that there's a little piece of her in here. This is one of my favorite recipes for making pie crust. And this now lives in my permanent book, because my permanent recipe book, because it's very easy. It's a very reliable recipe. Here's where I started taking notes on some research around grief. So I looked into the 5 stages of grief that is a little more well known, but then I also looked at uncommon grief experiences, and I also looked at anticipatory grief. That was something that I felt that I wanted to learn a little more on, because I felt like I was experiencing that before Coconut passed. It was a really interesting article because it kind of talked about anticipatory grief in general. So when we anticipate that we're going to lose someone, in this article, it was mostly around caretakers who are looking after people that may be terminally ill, care for them, but also experiences grief knowing that there was going to be an end. It talks about mental time travel, which is the ability to project yourself into a past or future, and how that relates to grief. And then I put my own thoughts around that after reading the article. This was another article around challenging the stages of grief. I think this was a really interesting article for me as a practitioner, because I have definitely leaned on the stages of grief when I've worked with clients before. This was a symptom tracker that I created for Coconut, and obviously I stopped when he passed, but it was very much like the one that I do for myself. I was just tracking it for Coconut because at the time we were doing an elimination diet, and we were looking to see if different things we reintroduced into his diet would trigger any of these types of symptoms. And here I have some notes on outdoor gardening. So we once again attempted to plant some seeds and grow some vegetables from seeds instead of buying seedlings. We were somewhat successful. We started a little bit late, and I think because of everything going on with Coconut, we just weren't that motivated this year. So I did a little bit of research and we tried our best, but I don't think we're going to have that many vegetables this year from our garden, which is totally fine. Here I just documented my experience of Coconut's last day while we were at the emergency vet. And I copied out the Rainbow Bridge. This was a very comforting poem. I know it is pretty common. I had definitely heard of it before, but having gone through the loss of my dog, this was something that I just kind of kept rereading a lot in those early days. Here are some poems from Mary Oliver's Dog Songs. So somebody had recommended this book, and I was able to get it from the library, and I copied out some of my favorite poems. And I wrote some thoughts on the book as well. So this is something that I ended up starting to do as well, as I realized with all of this space and the fact that I'm in this book every day, this could be a good place for me to start adding my thoughts on media that I'm consuming. I originally had wanted to start a media journal and keep that separate, but honestly, it was just too much to maintain. And because I was tracking the books and movies and TV shows that I was consuming in here anyway, it kind of just made sense to add my thoughts in here as well. And I figured if I ever wanted to do anything extra, like in my Hobonichi weeks in the back, I had started doing reviews on the TV shows and movies that I've watched, and I've added photos. I've kind of made it a little more creative. I could also do that as well, but I think it's just easier here because I'm already in this book and I have all this space to just use this space. And it doesn't have to be fancy, but it's here if I want it. This is just a page where anytime I ink a pen with blue ink, I've been documenting it here. And I have space to do a few more pens. And these were some inks that I received from Michael in the Margins. And so anytime I've inked a pen with one of these inks, I've just come back here and added a little writing sample. And I suspected that I might run out of space in my original letter sent tracker. And so I created a part 2 in here. And so when I eventually run out of space there, then I can just come here and continue updating in here. Here are some little sketches that I was kind of doing with my my little sailor pen with a fude nib. This ink color, it currently has Sailor Manyo Neko Yanagi in here, but this was Birmingham Pen Co. Petrified Wood. So that's what I was using here. And this was when we planted our seeds. This was me just keeping track of what we planted. And then here I had some ideas on how I thought we could potentially hide our monitors in our office. We currently have it set up where we have our desks facing each other and we both have a monitor, and sometimes I just want like a clean desk space where I don't have this monitor here all the time. So I had this idea of potentially putting mounting the monitors to the wall if I could find an arm that would allow me to pull the monitor out when I needed it, but then I could tuck it away on the wall when I didn't. And then I don't know if this is even possible, but I was thinking you could cover it up and then use pole wrap to almost add like the timbre style sliding doors. I have no idea if this is possible, and I don't think I have the capacity to even try to make something like this. But I still thought it was a really good idea, and if anyone knows how to do this, then please let me know in the comments. But if I were a little more skilled as home DIYer, I'd like to think this is possible. This was an article that I found on the Sailor Pocket Pen. So one of my patrons very generously gifted me this vintage Sailor Pocket Pen. It is the cutest thing. I actually really love writing with it. And this is a medium nib. And I was so interested to learn more about this pocket pen that I ended up coming across this article that talks about how the pocket pen was originally designed to fit into the front pocket of shirts, and it became really popular in Japan because in Japan, office workers would often bow, and these pens would fall out of their pockets when they bowed. And so they created these pocket pens with this clip in order to clip onto the little short pocket. And so when you would bow, they wouldn't fall out. So I thought that was really interesting. And it seems like at a certain point they were everywhere, but I don't think they make these pens anymore. So it's interesting how we have the Pilot E95S, which I also have, that's still being made today, but apparently this Sailor pocket pen I don't think is being made anymore, but you can find them secondhand. Some more sketches of Coconut. We have this pink chair that was basically his, and he used to always sit on here and prop his head on the side. It's one of my favorite memories of him, just sitting in that chair looking at us. This is something fun, I think. I also added a few of these little sticky notes throughout the book as almost like future surprises for myself. So this is the first one that we've come across where I just wrote a note that says, "Are you still using this book? Whatever you're doing great." And it was meant to be a bit of a motivation in case I was losing motivation in this book. And there's a few more scattered throughout the book. And here we have a crochet pattern. This is the pattern that I used in the past to make these coasters. And I'm actually planning on making one for one of my patrons in a giveaway that I did recently. And part of the giveaway was I'm going to send a package, like a care package, to the patron. And if and when I hit my next milestone, I will run another giveaway and live stream. For this particular one, we just picked the winner, and I'm going to make a coaster, but I haven't made one in years, so I had to look up the pattern, and I thought I would copy it out here so that I could reference it as I'm crocheting it. This is from the last time I went to a Toronto pen meetup, and I met up with Bucky, and we both kind of tried out each other's pens. This was their currently inked for, I guess it was April. And it was very cool because I saw Bucky showing this in their video, and then I actually got to try them out myself in my book. So this was really fun. This is yellow ink, so every time I ink a pen with a yellow, I've been coming in here and doing a little writing sample. So this is Taisanji Yellow, which is one of the first inks that I ever bought. This is Bungu Box Ibisu. This was an ink sample from Tiffany from Toxmot. And then this is Diamine Candlelight, which was an ink sample that I got from XOXO Lorraine. And I'm really surprised at how similar these two inks actually look. It makes me happy that I have a bottle of this, even though this was a really lovely color and it flows really well in the pen. I don't feel like I need it because I think this is close enough. Some eye exam results. This was a really fun currently inked where I used one of the color combinations from the Dictionary of Color Combinations, and I picked inks that I thought would look as close to the combination as possible. I did some writing samples, and this was a stamp from Paper Plus Cloth, a local Toronto retailer. They're an official Travelers Company partner shop. It did bleed through, just as an FYI. Those stamps tend to bleed through Tomoe River paper, and I knew that, but I decided to stamp it anyway. These are some transfer stickers that Eliza gifted to me. They're really cute. They're all these little dog transfer stickers. And these transfer stickers are from one of my patrons, Sarah. This was a little experiment that I measured out what a passport-sized notebook would look like, and I was curious what it might look like to have a vertical weekly in a passport, because I have thought about what it might be like to plan in a traveler's passport, but because I'm so reliant on the vertical weekly, I just wanted to get a feel for what it might look like. It seems doable. So that is something that I might consider in the future, is potentially having a weekly setup in a passport. This is another color combination that I tried, although I will be the first to admit that these colors really don't match the actual color combination. I still had fun kind of coloring in this pattern to see how the colors look together. There was a little bit of bleed through, surprisingly. The pages get significantly more empty. And part of that is because I honestly was grieving. I was not that motivated to be in this planner. I wasn't really planning that much. There were days where I would just have a few big tasks that I needed to do, and I didn't feel like I needed to really write them down in the to-do list. So there were days where I didn't even really set up some of my days. I was basically doing the bare minimum in here, and I think that's okay. So I know that I will eventually go back and use these pages. And if I don't use these pages, I think that's fine as well. But I wanted to be honest and show you what it looks like. So May is very, very blank. And that's partially just because I was still taking it easy. Work was picking up, was quite busy, and I just found that I really didn't need or want to be in here much. And I would say in this month, this was probably the month where I was the least in love with this book. And I think that happens when you're in something for an extended period of time, is that you're not always, at least I am not always going to feel that excited to be in the book, because at the end of the day, this is more so a functional book. It's not really like a creative space. It's not like my Hobonichi weeks where I'm documenting memories. I'm mostly in here for work tasks and then work-related notes or life notes that tend to be more functional. So like meal planning, habit tracking, some fun stuff. This was another a dictionary of color combinations. I really loved this combination. I wouldn't have thought to have put this together, but I did another one of these little square type things, and I just love how this turned out. But it's mostly empty, and that's okay. Some days I didn't even bother putting in the events for that day. Around this point, I started to consider using this as a place to do a little more micro journaling. I watched this little 20-minute documentary on YouTube on the Candy Factory, which was a building that was owned by Anne Ballantine, I think I wrote here, and she was a real estate developer who had owned this space and rented it out to different artists. And it was just so interesting to hear each of the artists' stories and learn more about Anne. But then it kind of had a little bit of a sad ending to the documentary, so that caught me off guard. I decided to write about that here, and there's more space here if I want to look into it more and add any more thoughts. But this is kind of the point where I started to think, maybe I could use this even more than I'm using it now, because clearly I just have so many blank pages and I'm just not that motivated to use it as a planner. And it was starting to feel like this was way too much book for me, which is odd because at the beginning of the year, I was really enjoying having all this space. This was an ink accident that I tried to turn into a positive. things did start to get busy, so I started to use this even more, where I would segment the to-dos that I had into different sections, and I would highlight according to the work stream. And again, that is primarily why it's quite empty. And when I see that my to-do lists are this short repeatedly, this is kind of when I started to think, could I maybe downsize into a smaller book? Do I really need this much book as a planner? But I was enjoying doing some kind of micro journaling, and I continued to do that. And here is when I decided to start writing little reviews for movies that we're watching. So instead of trying to remember to open my Hobonichi Weeks and document it there and find photos and print them and make really beautiful spreads, which I honestly just don't always have the time and energy for, I have decided to simplify it. And basically, if I have something to say about a movie, I will write it out here, and I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just thought dumping whatever I feel like. And that's been working out pretty well so far. I'm going to try to use more of my stamps to make it stand out a little bit more. But I like the fact that I just need a pen to do this. I don't really need anything else. And so I've been doing that a little bit more. And here is where I started taking notes on crate training and adoption prep, because around this time we were contacted by one of the foster agencies that I had applied to about fostering a puppy. And so it all happened really fast. I mean, I applied to these agencies, but then I didn't really hear a lot. And then I guess when something becomes available, it all happens really fast. So I guess this is the official notice that we have since adopted a puppy. Her name was Omari. That was her foster name. I started documenting what it was like. And that's partially why I've been not sleeping as well and have been a little bit low on energy. But it's been one of the most healing experiences that we've had. She is this adorable mixed puppy. We don't know exactly what breed she is because she's a rescue puppy, and they found her in Winnipeg without her parents, so we don't know. But their guess is that she's a lab shepherd mix. When I got her tag, because as part of the adoption criteria was to get a little tag with her name and our phone number on the back, I saw this little dog tag, and it looks so much like her. It's just one of the dog tags that you would get from a pet store, and I ended up buying it and adding it as a journal charm, so I think that's really cute. And then I started to do a little journal entry a day on what was going on with her. And I've been using the same colored pen so that I can always know that that is related to her. And then in my weeklies, I even tried adding little extra blurbs around her. I don't know if I like this, I don't know if I'll continue it, but I thought it was kind of cute to add to this weekly page. Here's some requirements for adoption. So we had to sign her up for puppy class and share the receipt. So we've already started going to puppy classes, which have been really great. We had to get that ID tag with the phone number. So this is the first puppy that we've ever had together, because Coconut was an adult dog when we rescued him. So this puppy has had so many GI issues since we've had her. And because we are new puppy adopters, we did take her to the vet a couple of times just to make sure she was okay. So started using this again for notes, vet notes, looking into pet insurance. And then we officially renamed her after we adopted her to Bean Sprout, or Beanie, or Beanie Baby for short. And so all these blue notes are related to memories or little journal entries about her. And then here's where I start loving the Hibino again, because we have been going to puppy classes, and this, for example, is all the notes that I took during the orientation session. A little movie review, more notes in the weekly vertical. So anything here is a note related to her. I don't know. What do you think about this? I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it, but does it look too busy? I can't tell if it looks too busy or not. This is from one of my Q&A videos. So I had put out a call out for questions, and AAGM period wrote this little fun fact about Zibble Doni, which I really enjoyed. And then somebody responded to that video, Ramses Emerson, I think. I don't know if I got that name right. And they wrote Florilegium is like a medieval version of it. So I thought that was really interesting. And then I was thinking about going back into this space and looking at just learning more about these things, and maybe reading a little more into commonplacing again, because that's just a topic that has always intimidated me for some reason. I've been like afraid to call this a commonplace book because it seems, it just feels like it's not so much about special interests. And also, I don't really feel like I know what a commonplace is conceptually. After, I feel like I have an idea because it's a very common, popular topic in the journal community, but I just don't feel like I actually know. And so I think it could be an interesting thing to read into. These are the modules that we're taking for puppy class. More notes. For some reason I did this in black. More notes on Bean Sprout. Her development is incredible. At the beginning of the weekend, she was too afraid to go downstairs, and then by the end of the weekend, she was bouncing down them like a little goat. It was very cute and also very surprising that it happened that quickly. More notes. This was a review on a book that I read, so I thought I would try out writing it out here. And I mean, you can see that I have tons of room, so I think it's been really nice to make use of all of this space. If I were to write this much in, say, my Hobonichi A6, this would have taken up at least 2 pages. But because the grid is so small, I can write a lot and keep it all on one page, which I really love. Here I'm tracking her weight. So when we first got her, she was 11 pounds. And the last time we weighed her, she was already 17 pounds. And I've just added this little dog tab here so I can come back to it easily when I want to record, as I continue recording her weight. And now we're pretty much caught up. So a few more notes on Bean Sprout, some preemptive meal planning. Some Bean Sprout notes, just some other journaling notes. I did it in a different color because it was separate to Bean Sprout. And then these were notes that I took during our puppy class, and I actually took so many notes that I had to use the next page. So I thought that was Like, again, it made me very grateful to have this. And then I have a little page on like more notes on bean sprout that relates to this day. And then more stuff on bean sprout. Kelly from Kelly Anderson Studios recommended getting a little popsicle for bean sprouts, so I just wrote a little bit about it, and I wrote some recipes that I found online. And then some more notes on Beanie. And then we also have this little note that I left for myself. It's a little bit sad, but it says, "Do you remember when it was winter and it was so cold that Coconut refused to go outside?" So even though it is hard sometimes to think about Coconut, and it was definitely a bit emotional in the beginning having bean sprout in our home, using some of Coconut's old things. On the one hand, it just felt so weird to see some other puppy using his things, but on the other hand, I felt gratitude that we had those things and we were able to foster the puppy, because at that time we didn't know that we were going to adopt her. It's just been a very emotional start to the year, and I'm so grateful that Bean Sprout found her way to us, and I still miss Coconut immensely. And seeing this, if anything, it just brings me gratitude that we were able to care for him for as long as we could. It was a tough time. So that's kind of the big update. In addition to work being pretty busy the last few months, we've also been caring for a puppy. I think she's 13 weeks at this point, although we don't know for sure because we don't know her exact age. So it's been a lot, but it's been very full. I already adore her and I love her, so I'm really grateful that we have her in our lives. The last thing I'll do is I'll just show you what this looks like. In case you're curious, that's how it looks in terms of like chunkiness. I really haven't added too much to it, but even with just transfer stickers and mostly pen, it has fluffed up a little bit, which is fine. And then this has a zip pocket. This POTR has a little zip pocket in the back. At the beginning of the year, I was storing my vanishing point in here, but since I moved this over here for easier access, I've now put this, I don't know what this is called. I've had it for a while, but I use this to help apply my transfer stickers. So I just put it in here. It's nice and flat, so it doesn't really add any bulk when I'm writing on it. And then in this little pen loop, I have my Traveler's Company brass pencil. And I currently have a Blackwing pencil. I just took a hacksaw and I kind of cut it down so that it would fit in here. And then I could still close this. And I love it because it allows me to use some of the Blackwing pencils that I've accumulated over the years and still use this brass pencil, which I really love because I like that I like how compact it is, and I like that it covers the tip of the pencil so it doesn't get things dirty, and it fits really well in here. And then I just close it up, and that is my Hibino. I think if anything, when I flip through these pages, I see moments when I was highly motivated and was really in this book every day and was really having a good time. And then I see periods where I wasn't really doing that well, wasn't really that motivated to be in here or spend any more time planning than just doing the bare minimum in terms of planning and kind of getting through my day-to-day. Those days, I definitely felt how big this book was, and I did sometimes wonder if this was too much. But I think with life, there's ebbs and flows, and what I like about this is when I need it, it can support the busiest time of my life, but also the least busy, as long as I'm okay with the empty pages. So now that life is busy again, now that I've started using this book even more for non-work related things, I'm falling in love with it again. There's only a couple of things that I would like to change about it if I could do this over again. And that is, I would prefer my weeklies to be bundled together. I've mentioned this in other videos, but because I like to plan by week, I really like to be able to have them together so that I can really quickly flip through. If I want to make plans for 3 weeks from now, I want to be able to just flip 3 pages and get to the next, like get to that week to see what's coming up. But because of the way that this was set up, I end up having to flip through multiple pages just to get to the next weekly page. So that's something that I don't love, and it is a bulky book. I've adjusted to it. I haven't actually had too many issues about it being uncomfortable to write on, even in the beginning of the book. And I think that's because this cover kind of adds a bit of padding under the front. So when I need to write when I was writing in the beginning of the book, it was already kind of elevated because of this cover. So that really wasn't an issue either, which I was very relieved about. And I think if this were an A5 size, it would be overwhelming. But the fact that it's A6, I do think helps. So we'll see in another few months how things go. If I end the year with still more blank pages than not, then maybe that's a sign that I don't need a book that's 2 pages a day. I suspect I could be just as happy in a book where it's 1 page per day, as long as I had those tiny grids, because that really allows me to fit a lot in 1 page, which I personally really enjoy. But so far, I haven't been able to find another book that has less pages, that's cream paper with 2.5 millimeter grid. So if you know of any other books, please tell me, because I would love to explore them as a potential for future years. But as it stands, I think this is really the only option. And if I were to pick my planner for next year, I would probably consider the free diary version of this, so that I could put all my weeks together in the front and then date the rest of the book, and then have my dated dailies in the rest of the book. But I don't want to make any decisions now. I just want to continue putting my energy into this book, and we'll see how things go. Let me know if you have any questions. If you're still here, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon in the next video.